Hey race fans, it's Taylor and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series, and we are back previewing the 2022 season, and we're previewing it by talking about the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum. And obviously I'm here with a guest, but also really not a guest, pretty much a co-host at this point. It is Adam Lucas back on the show. Adam, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back, and welcome everyone.
Yeah, we're excited to start the regular season content again. We had some creative stuff and still more creative stuff ahead. We'll tease a little bit of a project at the end of this video that Adam's going to be heading for the 2022 season. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later. But for now, let's get into this Clash race that we had. Now, obviously very historic, and the historic win came from Joey Logano. Kyle Busch was the guy to beat all weekend, and obviously just didn't really have the speed at the end of the race to make it. Joey Logano made a pass for the lead, and he stayed there. So Joey Logano was your race winner, and then following him was Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Eric Jones, and Kyle Larson in your top five. The rest of the lineup is on your screen for you, but Adam, I want to talk about this a little bit. So were there any surprises as to who raced well, who didn't, or in general watching the racing on the track?
Well, to start, it was just so crazy to see a racetrack at the LA Coliseum. Being a football person, as I am, just seeing a race there was awesome. I thought it was going to be a disaster, and it turned out to be such a beautiful thing. So hats off to everybody, all the organizers, and everyone who put so much time and effort into making such a beautiful course for us to be entertained with. But the team I was most impressed with, even though they had only one car make it to the final, was Rick Ware Racing.
They were the surprise to me too. I mean, man, Cody Ware, he did very well.
Yes, heck of a drive. He had every opportunity to make it too. It wasn't like he was just hanging around at the back. He was lead hard charging into the top three to advance, and just came up just a little short.
But Ryan Preece is the name we're talking about here. He actually drove pretty well, and he is the guy that I think is going to take Rick Ware Racing to the next level this season. Do we have any expectations for him going into 2022? What are you thinking?
Well, I don't want to get too crazy with my prediction with them, but I do want to say, I think with this new car and with the level of talent that Ryan Preece brings to their driver stable, I think we're going to see more consistent runs. I believe they can get that car and make it a top 20 type of run. So I think the expectations will be solid top 20s, maybe top 25s instead of running out at the back. So it's not going to be an immediate, top 10s, top 5s for Ryan Preece, because the competition, there's just so much of it already. But I can easily see them sneak in and get top 20s.
I'm with you on that. So I'm not going to reiterate that a little bit. I think that is a pretty reasonable expectation for Ryan Preece, and obviously he's going to be in the Xfinity Series and Truck Series 2 this year, doing more for Ford Motorsports as a whole. Other drivers that actually surprised me a little bit. Now, I think our expectations for Cindric are a little big, but I also know that he got a grand welcoming to the NASCAR Cup Series with a lot of beating and banging, lots of spins. Nobody was really kind to him during this race, but drivers that I think did really well, honestly, I mean, Harrison Burton did pretty significantly well. We had Daniel Suarez that I thought was a really good contender this weekend, and then what surprised me the most, and maybe this shouldn't have surprised me, but Justin Haley for Kaulig Racing. Kaulig as a whole, very, very promising start to the 2022 season. What do you think?
Yes, Kaulig is going to be a force to be reckoned with. The technical alliance they have with RCR, and just even seeing RCR is back at the top running solidly again. Well, I won't say back at the top yet. They kind of have been hovering around for the last season and a half, with Austin's win in 2020 at Texas, and then Tyler's very strong runs, including making the playoffs. So, I mean, it's not like they have been out of it. I think they're jumping back into the fire now, and having the Kaulig boys, the homies, as we like to refer to them as, the Kaulig homies. I think this team could be the sleeper pick to knock some of the bigger names off as we go through the season.
So speaking of Tyler Reddick, kind of shifting gears a little bit, talking about RCR, as you mentioned, we had 3 cars in the final race, and we're going to talk about the heat races too, because I really want to touch on those, because those are some of my favorite races of the weekend. But the main event, we had 3 cars go out at the same time around lap 50, I think, and I might be wrong on that, but it was Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick for RCR, and then Chase Briscoe all had transaxle failures on their cars, and that raises some concerns for me. And obviously, these are the new gen cars, or the Gen 7 cars, I think we should call it now. And the concern is all 3 of those cars have the same brake. Are we going to see more of this in the future? And obviously, preaching patience here. What can we expect moving forward in the 2022 season with this?
Uh, it's a little bit of a cause of concern, especially the same component breaking at the same time. But that just happens with new cars, new body style, especially since NASCAR is actually giving the parts. There's no custom parts anymore on these cars, truly. So I think we could see some gremlins at the beginning of the season, but I'd say by midway when we get to Road America, all the bugs will be worked out. So I think we could see some weird things happen. I hope we don't, but it'll make for some entertaining races and possibly point scenarios where guys actually need to win who are usually winning. So I think it's intriguing.
And you make a good point there because you mentioned earlier when we were off camera, like in the early days, back when there was new cars or whatever, parts would just kind of break. And the guys that would usually be championship contenders could be out one week. That was unexpected because the car part would break. And it kind of brings that back into the picture. So like you said, we might have some fan favorites. We might have some guys that are championship contenders be taken out due to mechanical failures. I mean, it's happened before, even last season. It's happened in seasons prior. But with the new car and the mechanics of those cars still being determined as we're going to the actual races, it leaves room for error, and it leaves room for some confusion, some heartbreak, and I think that'll be interesting to see. And I hate saying that like a mechanical failure on a championship winning car is exciting to me, but it brings some intrigue. Speaking of intrigue, horrible segues, I know. I promise you guys I'm going to get better at those. I promise. But making things a success, bringing in intrigue. What about the LA Coliseum? What did they get right? What needs improved? First off, what did we think about the entertainment? That was a big part of the broadcast. We got Ice Cube, we had Pitbull, we had dancing, we had theatrics. I want to know, Adam, from you, what did you think of all of it?
For me, I thought it was over the top, but let me explain why.
Okay.
It was over the top in the sense that we're trying to gain on our fan base. We're trying to bring new people to our sport and trying to get them to be not just a one and done. We're trying to make them lifelong fans. So I think the method that NASCAR went with was perfect. It was perfect. You had a NASCAR race at a Ice Cube and Pitbull concert. It was fantastic. So I think it worked out fabulously. Now, traditionalists, no, it was just too much over the top. I.e., this was all just for TV ratings, blah, 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 fire and brimstone, all this. Now, I liked it. I thought it was pretty conservative compared to where it could have went.
Mm-hmm,
Now, had this been at Texas Motor Speedway, it might be a different story with the Eddie Gossage days when everything would just be over the top. It was the big top on the asphalt, as I think he phrased it, or something close to that. So I think it was tamed enough where it catered to the audience that NASCAR is really gearing to try to bring into the sport.
And I'm not gonna lie with any of you. Before seeing the entertainment, I thought this was going to make NASCAR a joke. I'm gonna be real. I thought it was really bad for the sport. Now, I love Ice Cube and I love Pitbull, but when you bring that into a pretty historically conservative sport, that's a little odd. It's a little off-putting, and it's a little like, what in the world? But here's what I liked about the performances, and I think Pitbull and Ice Cube, they made this their own. They really honed the moment, because they could have just like not been in. They could have been like half-assed, for lack of a better word, on their performance, but they really sold it to the fans. They sold it to the audience. I really like that. And seeing the crowd there, I mean, they looked like they were really enjoying their time. Some of them didn't. Some of them were like, all right, like this is interesting. Some of them were like really partying it up. But I think it brought in a lot of intrigue. It brought in a lot of viewers, because I mean, even for me, I'm like, all right, how's this gonna work? We have a race, and we're all used to just racing all the way through, no intermissions for a concert. So I'm like, how is this gonna work? So that was pretty interesting to me, though I think it won me over in the end, in the sense that I didn't think it was as bad as I thought. But you also mentioned Adam TV ratings, and from Adam Stern on Twitter, he reported that the Fox broadcast brought in a 2.32 rating, or 4.283 million, I think? Million, there we go. Up 186% from last year's event, which is major, and it's the best Clash event since 2016. Pretty impressive. And this, for me, says that the sport is at least going in a good direction, especially leading up to the Daytona 500. I think this is pretty positive. Adam, are we on the same wavelength here?
I think so. The only thing, and it hit me this morning when I was reading about the television ratings, we have an entire week and a half until we're in Daytona. Mm-hmm. I wonder how many of the people that watched the LA Coliseum race, wonder how many of those people are going to remember to tune in to the Daytona 500. With the Super Bowl and all happening this weekend, everyone's going to be fixated on watching that. Hopefully that won't deter them from remembering, hey, sports continue in the springtime after the Super Bowl. So hopefully the hangover period, which is after the Clash and before the 500, doesn't affect all the new people that we're trying to bring in. So that's my one concern I have with all of this.
You do bring up a good point, and I think another concern with that too, if I could add, is we advertise the Clash so much, and I think Fox and any other place that really advertised this event did an outstanding job to bring in viewers, bring in like intrigue, if that's the word of the day for me. I've been using it like 50 million times, but it really brought in a lot of people. And again, I haven't seen that same type of advertisement for the Daytona Duels, which historically maybe doesn't get a lot of viewership compared to obviously the 500 and the other events we have this season. But still, I haven't seen anything for that at all. So if you're not sure, it's not this coming Thursday. But the next Thursday is when the duels are going to be happening. But at the same time, we also haven't seen anything about the 500. And that for me is a little concerning. And you do bring up a very valid point. There is this hangover period where we're going to be like, all right, when's NASCAR happening? What's next? And we also have to keep in mind, too, that the Coliseum event, it was a spectacle. It was an event. The races are not the same. So it's going to bring people in, but will it keep people around? Is kind of my concern, and I'm not sure if what NASCAR can do to really keep the new fans that they brought in the sport. I'm not really sure, but one thing I think they can do is keep Tony Stewart in the booth. I think that was a very good move from Fox to, I think, keep old fans in and keep newer fans in, because he did a great job.
Well, first of all, I am totally in the wrong with my prediction about Tony Stewart in the booth. I even told you when they first announced, I said, oh my gosh, Taylor, this is going to suck. And yet here we are. I am basking in whatever I witnessed and listened to. He brings so much to the table. He is not corny. He is straight to the point, and he's going to tell it how it is. And he's not going to try to get you to laugh. He's going to tell you how it is. And I love that. I love that.
And for me, too, with Tony Stewart is, I mean, because last year in the booth, we all kind of thought the combination of Clint Boyer and Jeff Gordon would be really interesting. You know, they're rivals, they're kind of friends. It proved for me personally to be a little bit too much, a little too, not gimmicky is the word, but too jokey. It was more of a performance about them as opposed to watching the race, and it got a little distracting. Now, this, obviously, it is only one race in, first one with Tony Stewart in the booth, but backing off of the points that you said, it was a success. He brought a lot to the table, and he was funny. I think he was kind of funny, but like a sarcastic funny that Tony Stewart is, and I think that was quite honestly a little refreshing, and it worked. And I'm so excited to have him in the booth for the Daytona week. Quite honestly, I think he's going to be great for the 500 when things are going crazy, especially towards the end of the race. I'm actually really curious to see how he's going to handle those calls when like things start to wreck and things kind of get really bad. I'm curious how he's going to do. But I want to move to a different thing. Obviously, this was a major endeavor by NASCAR. A lot of people didn't think it would work, myself included. I was very hesitant towards it, but the racing I think we saw was really good. And for me, personally, like I mentioned earlier, the best racing I saw was during the heat races, especially Heat 4 was a little bit of a mess towards the end. It started off great, and then I was like, wow, what's happening? Heat 2 was fantastic. But Adam, what did you see about the racing at the Coliseum that you liked, and then what did you see that you didn't like so much?
It was almost like Bristol and Martinsville had a baby that turned into a quarter mile that was flat, was entertained on a football field. That's kind of my assumption of what I saw. And when I say Bristol, I mean the old Bristol where you had to hug the bottom. You could not run above the line. You had one lane. That provides action. If you have one true passing lane, then everyone's going to be fighting for it, and tempers will flare. That was something that we saw. We saw some tempers flaring during the heats, and then not so much during the main event, but even the last chance qualifier, there was quite a few little bumper tags. However, there probably was going to be bumper tags regardless because you're going almost 80 into the corner and breaking down to about 30. So yeah, I liked it. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was good.
You mentioned tempers, and one thing I want to notice is I've never seen Ryan Blaney mad. I really haven't, even like during the race. I've seen him a little irritated, but he threw the Hans device at Eric Jones' car in the final main event, and nobody got it on camera. Like Twitter, everyone's been asking. No, someone got really close to it. You sent me a video of someone did a live photo of it and got like Blaney jumping over something, getting ready to throw it, but the action was never completed, and it broke me. I wanted to see him just throw the Hans device, but nobody caught it. But it's short track racing. Everyone's gonna get mad, and I know Ty Dillon was a big topic of discussion in the Heat 4. It got a little spinny with Ty Dillon, and he wanted to make it to the main event.
Ty Dillon became he became a giant magnet basically for all the. It was like Dodgems at the fairground.
I mean, it just everywhere he went, people seemed to spin, and then he got disqualified from the main event. If you guys were watching, he raced his way into the main, but then NASCAR pretty much parked him because he had 2 restart violations, and per NASCAR rules and them following their own rules, which I appreciate, I really do. Them laying the law down right now. They were like, nah, sorry, you can't, and I'm pretty sure at that point Harrison Burton was the one that got into the main event from that. So it was really interesting to see how they kind of pulled this off, what they did. I liked the racing. My only criticism was that passing was really an issue, but as Adam mentioned, you had to hug the bottom the whole time or else you gave up position. It didn't matter, like, if you moved a little bit, if you messed up a little bit. I mean, you lost position no matter what if you weren't sticking to the bottom of the track. But overall, I think it was entertaining. With that all said, let's go into our race ratings above or below the yellow line. If you're new here, here's how this works. So we have a line set at 50%, right? We have 0 to 100. 50% means it was like an okay race. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. Middle of the road. You all know that. Below that line means kind of bad, not good. You don't want to be below the yellow line. Above the yellow line is where we want to be. That means this race was good, it was decent, or even if you're at a 90 to 100%, it was one of the best races you have ever seen. Adam, we don't know each other's ratings right now, so I'm very curious what you rated this Coliseum race and why.
So when they first announced this race last year, I told myself, oh my God, what in the hell are we doing? This is going to be a giant you-know-what show. This is going to kill the sport dead on arrival to Los Angeles. And I can't tell you how wrong I was. I was so wrong. So my expectations for this race were if it gets above 25, I'd be happy.
Wow.
But here's the thing, though. I was entertained. I was hyped. I watched every minute that you could of that race. Above the yellow line, a solid 72.
Okay, well, hold up here. You hyped this event up like it was one of the best things since sliced bread in that whole sentence, and you gave it a 72? Why so low? What didn't get you to like an 80 or a 90?
It's an exhibition race. It's just practice,
okay.
baby. We just talking. To quote Allen Iverson, we talking about practice. We're talking about a show. If there was more on the line, I'd give it a little bit of a higher rate. You know, I'm a little complex when it comes to giving my ratings. Not everybody can get gold-colored diapers.
I mean, yeah, not everybody gets a medal. You're right, but I mean, gosh, and here's the thing. I'm kind of in agreement with you here, but I gave it a higher rating. Here's the reason why. I think this event was good as an event. Everything leading up to it, such as the heat races, qualifying, the theatrics, Pitbull, Ice Cube, the advertisement, everything that went up to this event made it a success. When we got to the actual races, when I was a little iffy, the product was really good, racing-wise. but it kind of felt like that's where things just, the speed slowed down a little bit. The momentum, the excitement kind of slowed down as we were seeing the racing product. Though, yes, we had an intermission, we had a cool concert. It didn't fulfill all of my wishes for the weekend. And because I'm basing this on the main event and not everything leading up to it, and I'm taking out the entertainment and everything, I'm going to give this race an 80%, just because, for me, I didn't think it would work. Same as you, Adam. I thought this was baloney. I thought it was stupid. But it worked out pretty decently well. So yeah, 80% from me, and here's what you all had to say. Because I had a Twitter poll up, and you all responded really well, so thank you all for that. With 98 votes, 95% of you said that the Busch Light Clash was a success, said that it was a good race, and only 5% of you said no. Daniel said, I said yes, but I think it was more of a success as an event and atmosphere than a race. Thought the race disappointed a little bit. AJ said that race was awesome, short track racing is the best. And finally, Charlie said, I thought it was going to be mediocre and I've never been so happy to be wrong. I can't wait to see what happens for the Clash next year. So that is what you all had to say on Twitter. Make sure to tell me what you thought in the comments below. And with that, we are done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line, talking about the Busch Light Clash. As always, Adam, thank you so much for joining the show. And outside of the channel, where else can we find you on social media?
You beautiful people can find me on Twitter at alucas9166. Please give me a follow. I love my followers.
And also, just to tease this a little bit, now, the name isn't sticking, but we have another account right now we're going to announce in, I don't know, a few weeks, few months, really not sure at the moment, but we have another project plan that Adam is heading for Above the Yellow Line. It is at ATYLNTI. We'll be posting some teasers for the new channel, or the new segment on Above the Yellow Line, in the next few weeks, and then we'll announce something very, very soon. But we're very excited to bring this new content to you. But for other places to find us on Above the Yellow Line, make sure you follow our socials, our Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch accounts. Also join the Above the Yellow Line Fantasy League on the NASCAR app. I'll post that link in the comments below. But we are Above the Yellow Line on Instagram and Twitch. And then Twitter, of course, you know it's _TaylorKitchen_ to follow me. So as we break down NASCAR news and silly season news and whatever. Silly season's almost coming to an end, though, as the Daytona 500 is nearing in the next 2 weeks, so we're very excited for that. But guys, thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Share this with your friends and family, and until next time, we'll see ya.